Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Sports on the Positive Tip, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. I'm here with Kenny Square. Kenny, the news came out last night with Sharon Moore at Michigan being fired, and then about an hour or two later, and I was just checking this morning, he's still in police custody. He gets arrested. Michigan doesn't say much except that he was fired for cause and an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. But it's got to be more to that if then the police pick him up and they're still holding him. What were your initial thoughts there?
I was confused until I heard more of the story, where apparently there was like threats issued to his wife and his lover and paying to end or to terminate a baby and all
Yeah.
this other stuff. And it's like
Yeah. Wow.
it's a good lesson in why the Bible says keep keep with one wife and that's it.
Yeah. Wow. 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 And what surprised me was at first, obviously, a lot is probably a lot more is going to surprise us, right? But what surprised me at first is that there was you and I talked about this. There was so many college football coaches that were fired during the season, and but then all of these vacancies have been filled. And I'm like, wow, Michigan is now out there, which is a prime job, but who's going to be available to take that job? That was the first thing that was going through my mind. And the first person that I thought of was Brian Kelly, who nobody has picked up yet. And I'm not sure with
Mhm.
his $54 million, is he in a hurry to go back to work, but he'd probably be ideal. I was reading that the Notre Dame, not the Notre Dame coach, he's not going anywhere, but the Alabama coach, I guess he has ties to Michigan, but I'm like, why would you leave Alabama for Michigan? Not and Michigan's not a great job, but I'm not leaving Alabama. Hey, last thing I'll say, and we're going to jump in and we're going to talk a lot more college football in these coming weeks. But he was part of. Remember, he got suspended as well. Michigan for the last 3 4 years of Harbaugh with the whole sign stealing and there was some recruiting allegation. I mean, so and but they still went ahead and did a succession thing, right, and gave the job to Moore. But I mean, there was a lot of evidence that he was part of that stuff, which, we could say all we want about how great a coach Jim Harbaugh is, and he is. Look what he's doing with the Chargers now, right? But there's some character flaws there, and it might be with Moore as well. So sad situation that I'm sure we're gonna get into more. But we got a lot of hot stoves to get into. As you can see, I'm recovered. I came out of the cave. I was crying the last couple of days. It's been a rough few days. So we'll talk about some hot stove. We've got Jeff Kent in the Hall of Fame. I've got some takes on that. I'm sure you do as well. And then your NFL rankings and Phillip Rivers may start on Sunday. That blew me away. Knicks, Giannis, OKC 24-1. You ready to get this going?
Let's get into
This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers! Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Let's jump right in. Kenny, when I spoke to, I was texting with our brother Larry, and when Kyle Schwarber signed 5 years, 150, I texted him that that's the number. That's the number. You've got to give Pete Alonso. You've got to give him those 5 years. Schwarber is a couple of years older, and their numbers, are pretty comparable. But here's the thing. I said, you probably got to give Pete a little bit more because he plays first base every day. Schwarber doesn't. Schwarber's a full-time DH. And sure enough, man, what did the Orioles give him? 5 years, 155. And the Mets never really made an offer. So let's start with Pete Alonso first. He's now in your division. Um, I'll tell you how I'm feeling in a second. Now, a day removed, I'm feeling a little bit better. But I'll put it out there. These three guys, I hate to lose, right? Brandon, I'm talking about Brandon Nimmo, Edwin Diaz, and Pete Alonso. I love Pete Alonso. He's one of my all-time favorite Mets for a lot of reasons, not just the home runs. He just seems to be an overall good guy, plays hard, shows up every day, never gets hurt. When you put up 38 home runs and 125 RBIs, and you average 39 home runs over, the years he's been with the Mets. I mean, there's not many guys in baseball like that, with the exception of maybe a Kyle Schwarber and a Shohei Ohtani. So let me hear your thoughts on first Pete Alonso, and then we'll hit Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, well, I'd said it back then when he broke the record that it would be really weird that he now holds the home run record for the Mets and then just doesn't sign there. And it's just awkward. And the Mets, the Mets in general, like it seems like some of their more premier stars don't stay there. Like
Yeah,
someone mentioned Tom Seaver before. Jose Reyes wasn't like I know he ended his career there, but he also left.
Jacob
And
DeGrom, yeah,
Jacob DeGrom, like I thought I had the thought earlier. I was watching a video and like someone was saying like, "Oh, I think Pete Alonso has a chance for the Hall of Fame," which I wouldn't go that far just yet. He
right,
has like 264 home runs. He would need to average 47 home runs over the length of this contract to get to 500.
right,
47 is a lot, especially when you're playing half your games at Academy Arts,
yeah,
which has a bigger left field now. Um, but still, like he is one of the most beloved Mets of the last
oh yeah,
decade or so.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think it seems really bizarre to kind of see a guy like that leave.
yeah,
And it kind of seems like the Mets just let him walk out the door as opposed to like, where it's hard to compare the two, I know, but like, as opposed to the Yankees, who only had Juan Soto for a year, were willing to kind of go toe to toe with the Mets until they realized that the Mets would just keep upping the dollar amount.
yeah, yeah,
So, like, it's just really, I don't know, it's just really bizarre. And good for the Orioles. I hate it, um, which is probably a good thing for the Orioles. Like, if you look at their lineup now, assume Adley Rushman, Jackson Holiday have bounce back years. They get a frontline starting pitcher. They're dangerous.
yeah.
Um,
They're
I
gonna
look
be
at
right
the
back
AL
in.
East as a whole. Like,
Yeah,
okay, so the Rays got Cedric Mullins. Okay, whatever. But the defending AL champion Blue Jays got Dylan Cease. The Red Sox got Sonny Gray, who hates the Yankees apparently, and the Yankees have re-signed Trent Grisham for 1 year. Like
yeah,
they need to do something. And
yeah,
what scares me the most is Mets have a giant vacancy at first base because Pete Alonso walked out the door.
yeah, yeah,
Their outfield is more uncertain because they traded away Brandon Nimmo.
yeah.
You know who fits that perfectly? Cody Bellinger.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And like unlike I think in years past, in like the Wilpon era, where you kind of be like, oh well, that's the Mets. We're gonna stink for the next half decade. I think that this new Mets regime is going to try to respond in some way. Whether that's Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger kind of seems like the perfect fit. But I overall, it kind of just seems like Stearns, who I've really heard a lot. He's gotten a lot of heat recently,
oh
rightfully so.
yeah,
Um, I feel like he is a small market manager or GM, but like it's still operating with that like you got to really pinch your pennies. This guy's the richest owner in baseball.
yeah,
Like with any kind of large contract, whether you're talking like Kyle Schwarber, year 4 and 5 with the Phillies is going to look awful.
yeah,
But Giancarlo Stanton, I love him. He's been a great Yankee. These last couple years has been a little bit brutal.
yeah,
Um, Aaron Judge, he is back-to-back MVP. He is the best hitter in baseball. In year 9 of his 9-year contract, it's going to look a little awful.
yeah,
And you know that, and you're just going to eat the costs. And I think that that's something that the Mets still haven't fully wrapped their brains around a little bit.
yeah,
Like you're always gonna have a bad contract, and it's just gonna be what it is.
yeah.
Um, but overall, it's a good move for Pete Alonso. I think he fits well in that lineup. I hate that for the Yankees. As far as the Mets go, they're going to have to respond in some big way. There's not a lot of big guys out there, especially at the first base position, aside from Bellinger. But also, I don't know if Cody Bellinger wants to play just
Yeah.
exclusively first base. So,
No, I'm sure he doesn't. I think he likes the versatility of I think at his core, he loves playing the outfield. Everything you said is dead on. And so this was difficult for me because I had to come to the conclusion that I'll stick with David Stearns for a second, that he's remaking this team in his image. And I honestly I have zero idea what he's going to do at first base. You know, there's some things where okay, now you open up a spot for Mark Vientos and Jeff McNeil or Paul Goldschmidt, right? And Jeff McNeil to platoon. And I'm like, well, Goldschmidt would fit the narrative of getting better defensively. Goldschmidt is an excellent defensive first baseman, still even at this point in his career. But McNeil, I've seen him only a couple of games at first base, so I don't have any idea. I mean, he's overall a good defensive player, not great. But Vientos, I've seen a lot of him defensively at third base, not much at first base. I have no idea. So I'm not sure that that would be the narrative. I read this morning Wilson Contreras, who's played first base extremely well, that the Mets are looking for him. Yeah, I'm with you. I would, shake my head no there. The only guy, and he's not available now, that I thought even last year and then this year as a replacement would be Josh Naylor, who brought
mm,
power and and is a great defensive first baseman, speed, but obviously he's off the board. So I want to indulge me for a second as I tell the story that you've heard before, and I think I've told it on the show before, and that is Ralph Kiner in 1953. You know, he was coming off a down year. He had 37 homers, 87 RBIs. Whereas at the year before, he had hit 54 homers. He was a 50 homer guy for a couple of years, in the late 40s, early 50s. But the Pirates stunk at that time. They were a terrible team, and he was the best player on a bad team. But he goes in and he only wants $1,000 a year raise, and the owner says, "Huh, okay, come back and see me tomorrow morning, and we'll talk a little bit more about it." Kind of goes back in, and the owner for the Pirates says, listen, I've got good news and I've got bad news. I'll give you the bad news first. Says, we're not giving you a raise at all." And Kiner is shocked, right? And the way he used to tell the story was amazing. But then he says, but the good news is we've traded you today to the Chicago Cubs. Cubs were even worse than the Pirates back then. And he's like, I don't understand. I'm the best player on the team. He said, yeah. He said, but we lost over 100 games last year. We can finish in last place with you, or we can finish in last place without you. So I think that that's Stern's mentality right now. That, hey, we won 83 games. We've only been to the playoffs twice with Pete Alonso as our first baseman, despite having these all-star years. And so while I don't quite agree with that, because I think that's a guy you continue to build around in addition to Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor, I think that's what Stearns is thinking right now. The trouble is I don't know if he's thinking we're going to go out and now spend that money on a few stars, because it's hard for me to think that Cohen um, reined him in money wise. I think Cohen was, hey, years wise, if you think we shouldn't go past 3 years with Pete Alonso, I'm backing you on that. But you could spend whatever money you want. I think if you paid Pete Alonso 40 million a year, uh, that if it was just 3 years, he probably still wouldn't have taken it because he was looking for the years. He's looking for the years last year. But he said, okay, I'll come back. I'll just sign. I'll have the opt out and I'll prove myself again, which he did. He had a phenomenal year, I thought, last year. So I think that we're seeing this with Stearns, and but the whole Edwin Diaz thing to me has got to be something different. See, I think Nimmo and Alonso fit into that category of we're going to get better defensively, and um, I'm going to reshape the team. And whether that's going to be I'm going to replace it's hard to replace. So Cody Bellinger hit 29 homers. Brandon Nimmo hit 25 homers. That's not a big difference. But Bellinger is certainly superior defensively in both positions, first base or in the outfield. Um, so I think those two fit into the narrative that he's going to reshape the team. I don't think anybody knows how though, because Kyle Tucker's good defensively, but he's another big left-handed hitter. Tucker's not going to hit 40 home runs like Pete does, but he will hit 20, 25. He's been consistent through his whole career. Same with Bellinger. Bellinger had one or two off years why the Dodgers let him walk to the Cubs. But I don't think we know. But the Edwin Diaz thing is totally different to me. And you did sign Devin Williams. Why Diaz wouldn't come back? And you and I did the math. It's not that much more money. I'm sure the Mets would have paid him. I can't imagine fitting into this whole narrative that and I'm just going to say this is my opinion, but some of the stats back it up. Last couple of years, Edwin Diaz has been the best closer in baseball. Certainly the best closer the Mets ever had. I love John Franco, Armando Benitez, Henry Mejia, Jarius Familia. We could name a lot of. Billy Wagner was great, but Billy Wagner used to give me a heart attack too at times. But
Hey, Rod.
oh, K-Rod. K-Rod was good for a while. And yeah, he was really good in his first year or two until he got into trouble. And then he was awful. And so, but even forget about that history, Diaz currently has been the best closer in baseball. I mean, he had the one blip where he had the injury. And of course, every closer is going to blow saves. And he had a lot of pressure on him, right? Because nobody liked that trade, especially when Robinson Cano kept getting hurt and they didn't think he was playing hard. Um, so, what do you think is going on with them not matching Edwin Diaz? Or was this Edwin Diaz just, and I don't think we'll ever hear it from him because he's a stand up guy. But was this something else? Because the Diaz thing reminded me more of Jacob DeGrom, because you just got the feeling that DeGrom just didn't want to be here, right? And you knew that Stearns even then wasn't going to give him 5 years. Stearns would have given him 3 years with a lot of money, I thought. But the Diaz thing, I mean, he didn't even come back to the Mets. Uh, is it just that he wanted to go to the Dodgers? I mean, this one really puzzles me. And so, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that because the Diaz thing I think is a little more alarming. Because with Alonso, like it seemed like the Mets were like, we're not going more than like 3 years with this
Right.
guy. And they even went as far as to leak it that said that like once the bidding got too high, they didn't even make him an offer. But they made an offer to Edwin Diaz,
Yeah.
and it was $3 million short. So like you're telling me that like matching it or even going an extra year was too much? No, and like you said, he is. I think you can make a good case that he is the best closer in baseball, if not easily top five.
Yeah.
Especially, I think one that could have had that case is Emmanuel Clase, but obviously that's gone. Um, and maybe it was that he just wanted to go to the Dodgers, go to the best team, have a great chance at winning a title, and also like he might be the last piece to them like running off another three in a row or something like
And
that,
his
which is insane.
and his brother's there.
His brother's there.
Yeah.
So it might be that he just wanted to leave. I think what and I think this is the bigger thing that we talked about a couple weeks ago. Is the chemistry that toxic in the Mets clubhouse and we just don't know it?
We don't know.
Is it because
Maybe.
like I made the comment last week and I know people push back a little bit. I wasn't talking about the Eagles, but I was talking about the Mets, where like I think winning cures a lot of those issues.
Yeah.
But like the stuff about Francisco Lindor not getting along with McNeil and not getting along with Juan Soto. I hate to say it, but maybe the common denominator is Francisco Lindor. And I don't get why, because it seems like he's a really good guy. And
Yeah.
it seems like he's a guy that's very likable. But either way, I think it's something that the Mets have to address. And I think kind of rebuilding this team a little bit will help. If I'm you, I'm a little nervous that Devin Williams is my closer. And there's not really
Yeah.
another great option.
Yeah.
Now, I think he could figure it out. I think under the right guys of pitching coaching and bullpen coaching, he can kind of straighten out some of the issues he had last year. And like for a good stretch, he was very good last year.
Yeah.
Beginning of the year and a weird hiccup in the middle, he just wasn't there. But I will tell you this: he blows a save in May that pushes the Mets under 500. Met fans are going to kill him,
Yeah.
and they're going to kill David Stearns for letting Edwin Diaz walk out. So
Yeah.
you always say it like one of the hardest things is when a team is meh. Not to say the Mets will be meh, but when a team is struggling and then all of a sudden they don't have that lockdown closer. So like
Yeah.
you have a lead heading into the ninth inning, and then you just are worried and you know it's going to be blown. It's
There's
just
nothing worse.
not a good
Yeah.
look.
There's nothing worse in baseball when you don't have a good closer, which is why you see at the trading deadline, bad teams trading away a good closer. I'm like, it's gonna go from bad to worse, you know. Um, I want to hit on what you said there though about the fans, and this is what I was thinking of yesterday too, was that David Stearns, after he signed Soto, he challenged the fans and said, listen, there were a lot of nights, we were winning and we were winning last year. He's talking about 2024, and 16,000 people would show up on a Wednesday in September, and he was right. You know, and he said, "So fans, come on out. I'm spending the money, so come on out." And the Mets broke their attendance records this year. Attendance records for Citi Field. Shea Stadium was bigger, so they're not going to do that. But um, the game that I went to was definitely a sellout, right? There wasn't a seat in the house, and that was, I mean, it was late summer, but it was a Tuesday night, but the atmosphere, I told you this, was phenomenal. I mean, the fans were into it, and that night, they beat the Phillies, come back when Brandon Nimmo got the winning hit. But in the ninth inning, Edwin Diaz came in, and oh my gosh, I didn't, I had goosebumps because I hadn't seen the whole Timmy Trumpet thing in person. I just saw it on TV. It was, I mean, with the lights going on and off and everything like that, and Diaz coming. I mean, it's just electric. And so the fans, you're right. And I think Cohen listens to fans. I'm not sure Stearns is listening to the fans right now because, again, when you think about these three guys, the fans love Brandon Nimmo. He never got booed. Fans love Pete Alonso. He never got booed. The fans love Edwin Diaz, And so you're taking away three really popular players. You mentioned Lindor. It's always been to me a little bit lukewarm. They've got into him a little bit more the last year and a half with the whole "my girl" thing when he comes to bat. But Lindor got booed a lot. And so in his first couple of years, especially. And so I don't know. There's something there. There's something underlying, but there's something that Stearns hasn't revealed yet in terms of his plan. Remember when they signed Devin Williams a few weeks ago, my thought was the move is incomplete. I love Devin Williams as an eighth inning guy at this point, right? Based on last year. But based on his history with the Brewers, he was a great closer, just as good, if not better, than Edwin Diaz, right? Uh, but last year he didn't look himself. Maybe he's still recovering from his injury. But that was 2 years ago, so I'm not so sure about that. I do think they still need to get somebody else in the bullpen. I just don't think they'll go out and get, Suarez, who's very good, but he's not great. But maybe if you have the two guys there, and I don't know who would be available for trade, or the Mets don't really have someone in their bullpen or in their farm system that's a closer that's going to come up and close. So there's not really an internal option, right, for them. And don't say Clay Holmes. I see where you're smiling there.
Well, along those lines,
Yeah.
the guy that might fit the bill, and I know Met fans love to side X Yankees, but a guy that's out there that might fit is Luke Weaver. When he was a closer, he was good.
I'd take a shot on Luke Weaver, of course. Yeah.
And also David Stearns, you want to turn him into a starter too, go for it. He's been a starter in his career.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you there. I would Luke Weaver would be a good, and that seems like a Stearns signing, right? Because Luke Weaver's not going to cost a ton of money. You're not going to have to give him 5 years. You know what I mean? But I agree with you. He was very good, and if you put him in the eighth inning or in the ninth inning, I'm totally fine with that. So the Mets need two, right? And it didn't work out at the trading deadline, because they got Helsley, and I'm like, okay, let's go, put him in the eighth inning, and but it didn't work out. So I think Ken, to wrap up the Mets, and that was really the hot stove stuff. I don't. I think that Stearns has a plan. I can't imagine that he doesn't. I don't. I think he was taken aback when Diaz walked. I don't think he was surprised when Pete left, right? Because if you don't make him an offer, I mean, what do you expect? And Pete was clear for a long time. See, the Diaz thing came out of left field. Did you hear us once talk during the season about Diaz going to be a free agent? I mean, the Mets obviously were committed to him. They gave him 5 years, 100. When people heard about that contract a few years ago, how do you give the closer 5 years, $100 million? So the Mets were committed to Diaz, and I didn't even know he had this opt-out thing. I was really surprised, and he didn't do it right away like Pete did. As soon as Pete walked into the club, yep, I'm opting out. Whereas Diaz, it was a while. So that one is still a head scratcher. Maybe we'll get to know more, but I have to say, I think he has a plan. I'm just not sure what it is, and I can't imagine that that it's a plan for the Mets to just be okay this year or to rebuild. You don't sign Juan Soto and have all this money tied into Lindor and him and not compete year in and year out, right? But the team as it is right now is not making the playoffs, you know. But hopefully, you'll bring in, somebody else. Um, so I think let's pivot real quick. Jeff Kent made the Hall of Fame. I looked back. Yeah, you're clapping, right? So Carlos Delgado, I think, was the other closest, right? I think he got the other most votes. But your reaction with not only Jeff Kent but Bonds and Clemens not getting in. So Bonds, Clemens, put them to the side for a second. Delgado, Mattingly, and Dale Murphy, I think at some point do deserve to get in now. Um, but Bonds and Clemens probably, they didn't. There was seemed like there was no traction for them. I thought maybe because Delgado got more votes than either one of them. What were your overall thoughts on, the Eras Committee now putting in Jeff Kent?
Um, I guess I'll start with the Bonds Clemens thing. Just further proof that these guys aren't getting in anytime soon because of the steroids thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Their contemporaries don't like that they cheated, and um,
yeah,
it's that's just it's always going to be that way
yeah,
until something changes, and it is what it is. I remember we had talked a few years ago about Jeff Kent and how he should have been in the Hall of Fame.
yeah,
Most home runs ever by a second baseman. Um, Usually that plus having an MVP and like being a very good player. I think
on good teams. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I mean we talked about players leaving. He is one of them, but
Well,
not
I'll get
really.
into that in a second. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah.
But but yeah, like I think it to me it was just like because you can look at a lot of different stats and be like this guy was like I feel like the Hall of Fame it's reserved for players that were the best at their positions, best at what they did. And he literally was like most home runs by a second baseman. And you look even nowadays, there really isn't a guy that like is going to challenge that. I think for a minute we thought maybe Robbie Cano, but
Right.
obviously that didn't work out. But like, I don't know. It's interesting that he didn't get voted in. I think part of why he didn't is because he kind of got in. He was up during the ballot where there was a lot of really good players. Because like the ballots, remember, like
Great
5, 6, 7 years ago, were
Yeah.
very crowded because you had guys like Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson,
He
Greg
got overwhelmed.
Maddux, Tom
Yeah.
Glavine, and like you had four of those like superstars that were definitely getting in on their first ballot. Plus all the steroid guys that were probably getting voted on by 30, 40% of the guys anyway. So yeah, I'm glad that he finally got in now.
Yeah, I think everything you were saying, I think he was overlooked in a lot of ways, and I think even he was overlooked when in that Giants team. I mean, it was all about Barry Bonds, and I think that if you ask, managers from that era, were you afraid of Bonds or Kent, they'll say, no, no, we were afraid of Bonds, but Kent was the perfect, protection player for him, right? Let me go back real quick with Kent because you're right, he's an ex-Met, and I was surprised. I remember uh, not being that upset when he got traded, but the Mets originally got him because they traded away David Cohn at the trading deadline to Toronto in '92 because the Mets were totally out of it. Cohn was going to be a free agent, and he helped the Blue Jays win the World Series that year, of course. Um, but Kent, 3 full seasons with the Mets, 21 homers, 80 RBIs, 270. 93, 94, 14 homers, 68 RBIs, 292. 95, 20 homers, 65 RBIs, 278. So he was already showing a lot of consistency in those 3 full years with the Mets. He gets dealt for Carlos Baerga. So this is why nobody said anything at the time, right? Because him and Jose Vizcaino go to Cleveland, the Indians at the time for Carlos Baerga. Now, we say that Carlos Baerga got old quick, and we forget this. The year before in '95, Baerga was an all-star. He had 15 homers, 90 RBIs. He batted 314. And that was 5 straight years that he batted over 300. I mean, the guy was a perennial all-star. 4 straight years he batted over 300. Sorry. He was a perennial all-star. He was an excellent second baseman. So we're like, oh, look what we're getting. Do you remember how old Carlos Baerga was in 1995? Will we say that he got old real quick, or in 1996? Put it that way. So I got to add 1 year. Do you know how old he was?
35?
No, that's how old if he played, right? He was only 28. He was 20.
Oh,
Yeah, he should have been in the prime of his career, and we were like pumped up. Oh my gosh. But anyway, I mean, the years that after the Indians wanted to go in some different directions, and they dealt Kent to the Giants, and this is where his career obviously takes off. His MVP year, he's 33 homers, 125 RBIs, batting 334 as a second baseman. And he's got these years from 97 all the way through 899, all the way through like 2002, where, I mean, even his last year with the Giants was 37 homers and 108 RBIs. I mean, the guy was just consistent like every year. And even he has a year in 2005. 2005 with the Dodgers, he's 29 homers, 105 RBIs, 289. In addition to he wasn't a great fielding third baseman, but he was very good, more than competent. So I think well deserved. What do you think?
yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
it kind of seems like it was a little well overdue. Um,
definitely. Yeah.
I'm looking here too because something that I'm kind of curious about is if he's going to be the only one. I don't think he will be. Um, I'll just kind of read off a few names that might be interesting. Um, First, I think the guy that'll probably join him out of that we'll find out in about a month or so is Carlos Beltran, who got 70.3% last time.
Yeah.
Um, Andrew Jones is at 66.2.
Yeah.
So he might get in,
Yeah.
especially with kind of a weaker first player ballot.
Yeah.
All the other returning players had under 40%. Chase Utley, 39, Felix Hernandez, 20, Andy Pettit, 29 or 27. Um,
Yeah.
and then of course your guys like A-Rod at 37.
Yeah.
Manny's in his last year at 34, Bobby Abreu 19. Um, and then the first year guys, I mean, Ryan Braun, Shin-Soo Choo, Edwin Encarnacion, Gio Gonzalez, Alex Gordon, Cole Hamels. Uh, I still say no on Cole Hamels, but I'm leaning a little bit more. He might get some votes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Matt Kemp, Howie Kendrick, Nick Markakis, Daniel Murphy, Hunter Pence, Rick Porcello. A lot of really good guys. Rick Porcello won a Cy Young and should
Yeah,
have.
he
So.
did. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, no, there's nobody there. I think that's except Cole Hamels may linger for a little while, on the ballot. But if Cole Hamels does get in, and I was making a little bit of a case for him, then I would be screaming loud for Andy Pettit. I mean, think about who was a really better pitcher over their career. Say Andy Pettit. And I've been surprised at. him and Bernie Williams, I think, have been the ones that surprised me the most out of that Yankee era that didn't get enough love. I think Don Mattingly, Carlos Delgado, since he came so close, I think he'll get in the next time around on the eras committee. And I'm surprised Mattingly and Dale Murphy didn't get more run. But Bonds and Clemens, it's still raw. And I think Jeff Kent also, and this we overlook, and we'll shift over to the NFL. This we overlooked. Jeff Kent wasn't very well liked as a player. The writers didn't like him. He wasn't a guy that stood in front of his locker and gave quotes. It's pretty, especially as his career went on, he was kind of a surly guy. He has that confrontation with Barry Bonds in the dugout. Remember when they squared off? Um, and so I think that's part of it, right? For Jeff Kent, never associated though with steroids in that era, right? He's right smack in that era where steroids were out there, and he's on in the same clubhouse, right? With Bonds, but I think it has to do also with Bonds and Clemens' arrogance, them never, being repentant about it, and just I think that if Bonds like pick a sports writer or a sports broadcaster, right, and said I'm going to do a sit down for an hour, everyone will watch that, not live or whatever, but and totally admit everything. Here's why I did it. I saw Sosa and McGuire, whatever, um, it's the biggest regret of my life, whatever, right? I think he'd get in sooner rather than later. Same with Clemens, because Clemens, I mean, who really liked Roger Clemens when he was playing the team that he was playing for? We loved him, right? When he was with the Yankees, you loved him, I'm sure. When he was with the Red Sox, they loved him. But outside of that, players were scared of him. He was a headhunter, and he was very, very arrogant. And look how arrogant he's been since. So I think it shouldn't. You should take that stuff out of it when you're voting. Just go by. But even if they take that stuff out of it, they're like, with the steroids, we're not putting them in. Plus, we don't like them, you know. And so, I think kudos to Jeff Kent that he got in. All right, we ready to talk some NFL?
Let's go.
All right, I'm turning it over to you. As I pull up the your screen here, and I encourage folks when they see this to go ahead and listen to the podcast because we've had quite a few folks and we love comments, but we're getting quite a few comments, and I'm like, and I'm gonna start to respond and say, listen to Kenny's explanation. Real quick. Here's big stories for me. As a lot of things happen again this week in the NFL. Philip Rivers, that's going to be very interesting. We'll see what I thought it was a joke when you sent it to me. I'm like, no, come on, but we'll see. I mean, I guess he's in good shape. We'll see. Um, Shador Sanders in that last play, and I mean, he played great, Sanders. That last play, though, in Cleveland, I'm sure you'll touch on that. That might just get I think, still, despite all of the Browns' problems, a still highly regarded coach. That last play may get him fired. The Bills, I think their window is wide open right now in the AFC. I know we've got the Broncos and the Pats up there, but then you talking about playoff experience. I think they've got a big, wide open window. That Chief Texans games, I think, was such a pivotal game for both teams. So I'm sure you're going to hit on that. The Ravens, oh my gosh. I see you have a category, what went wrong there. And the other story brewing is, I mean, we killed the Dolphins those first few years and first few weeks. And remember, I in our preview, I put the Dolphins as that was going to be a team on the backslide. They're playing great, and I'll go ready to give this away. Monday night, they go to Pittsburgh, and again, another big game for both teams. It's not out of the realm of possibilities for the Dolphins to make the playoffs. So, a lot of stories developing as we now really in the home stretch of the NFL. So I'll keep quiet. Take it away.
All right. Well, obviously you can see Cancun keeps getting bigger. They're gonna have to build another hotel.
Yes.
Um, I will touch on the Browns real quick here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's starting to seem like Stefanski might not be the guy. I mean, if I were to just tell you, Shadur Sanders, who had the best offensive performance of any rookie this year, over 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and you didn't put him in on the last play of the game. Myles Garrett got a couple sacks. He's over 20, very exclusive category. And all of that, and they still couldn't win.
Yeah.
We talked about this with the Giants a couple weeks ago. I don't, and I understand there's the analytics of it too, but like sometimes you just got to use common sense.
Yeah.
And you're up 14, you go for two and miss it. So then you have to go for two again. But then the guy that's been on fire, you're not even going to have him to play. Like, come on. It just doesn't make any sense.
When I saw the replay of that, I was like, come on, man. What are you doing? You know?
Yeah. And good for Shador. He has now officially been named the quarterback for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
They're in a weird spot next year because obviously you'll have Deshaun Watson, who you can't get rid of. We talked a little bit about that. I think it's a $142 million cap hit if they were to cut him. They've already said he's going to be on the roster next year, and they like his veteran leadership, which, like, what? You didn't have to say that.
Yeah.
That's like saying, I don't know, you like Emmanuel Classe's judgment when it comes to throwing first pitches. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But let's stop talking about the teams out. There's several teams still in. The last tier, all things are possible. The Bengals could lose this week and still have a shot to win the division. That I think is more of a testament to how bad the AFC South, the AFC North has been, but they still have a shot. I think especially since they have Joe Burrow, it's still there. You mentioned it with the Dolphins. The Dolphins still have a very good path to make the playoffs. And they could be there 6-7 now, let all the people go crazy about their record.
Yeah.
But they could be 500, which when they fired their GM a couple months ago, we would have never thought that was possible. So good for them.
Yeah.
What went wrong? I think these three teams, it's like you looked at, okay, so obviously the Colts, we weren't expecting them to do what they did. And I'll get to the Colts in a moment, but especially the Ravens and the Chiefs. I think with the Ravens, the answer to what went wrong is more their quarterback isn't healthy and is not playing well.
Yeah.
And that's something like they've got to address. Another guy, I think it might be his time up, might be John Harbaugh. He's been there a long time. Doesn't seem like it's working out. But we'll see. He could be a guy that's on the hot seat. Like, because usually you get one like, oh, wow, that was kind of a stunning coaching fire. He might be the guy.
Yeah.
The Chiefs, they're also at 6-7. And I heard it said this way. Unlike the meme, we know why that's the case.
Yeah.
Really, like, a lot of drop passes again. They lead the league in drop passes. Patrick Mahomes has had, like, for a long time, you always looked, and anytime they lost, it was like, well, he didn't play bad. He's had a lot of really bad games this year. And this week is definitely no exception to that.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a situation where they could be eliminated from playoff contention if they lose and other things happen. And that's something where, like, you're talking the last 3 weeks of a Chiefs team not even in the playoffs. That's insane. That's something I never saw coming.
Yeah.
Especially since, I don't know if you know this stat, Tom Brady never took a snap when he was out of playoff contention.
Wow.
In his career. So
that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think now I don't think the GOAT debate is settled because Patrick Mahomes is still young and the Patriots went a significant gap between winning titles. Like to say their dynasty is over, I think this iteration of the Chiefs is over though.
Right.
Travis Kelce, retire, go off to the sunset and marry Taylor Swift on whatever date they already set. I don't remember. But like all of that is gone.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think Andy Reid, he'll leave whenever he wants to, but so long as you have Patrick Mahomes, there's always, if you can create a roster around him, I think you have a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they'll retool, no doubt. And they'll be back, I think, sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Cautious optimism. These 6 teams, they're still kind of, they might or might not be in the playoff hunt. And I think like you have some optimism in there. The Steelers, you still got Aaron Rodgers. They still have a shot at continuing to have a winning record. Go Mike Tomlin. I don't know how that happens. Um, the Eagles really had a shot to kind of end any of the debate on whether or not they could actually win, like easily win the East, but then they keep losing. So I don't know there. The the Bucks and the Panthers, I think, is going to be a very interesting race down the stretch because they still play twice.
Yeah.
Um, the Cowboys are still in there because the Eagles keep losing. Cowboys, I think, go 4-0 the rest of the way, and the Eagles lose 2 games. I believe that's how the Cowboys can make it. Lions. I wanted to mention this crazy stat that I saw. Um, since Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff are traded for each other, here are their stats. Jared Goff, 264.2 total yards per game, 148 total touchdowns, 64 turnovers. Matthew Stafford, 264.1 total yards,
Wow.
148 total touchdowns, 62 turnovers.
Wow.
Um, they basically put up the same numbers, which
Great
is
trade.
insane.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the really crazy win-win trades, and they play again this week. Lions have won 2 out of the 3 games they played.
Yeah.
Um, giving fans a Merry Christmas. I think all of these teams, I think you look at them and you're like, okay, we could actually make our fans happy, whether it's making the playoffs, whether it's winning a few playoff games. You'd said the Bills earlier. The Bills have probably their biggest opportunity to win a title.
Yeah.
Mahomes probably not going to be in there. Lamar is probably not going to be in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe Burrow's probably not going to be in there. You got a shot, and this is, I think, the time that you have to really dial it in.
Yeah.
However, I think one of their biggest looming giants to kind of look out for is going to be the Houston Texans, who
Mm-hmm.
have an excellent defense.
Yeah.
They have a great head coach, and they have a quarterback that has won multiple playoff games in CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
So I would just be careful of that, but
Yeah.
they're really good. I think it's good there. Top 5, I mean, not much has really changed there. The Rams, I think, are still the top team in the league. The Patriots, I think this is one of their bigger tests. And I'm already sick of Patriot fans acting like they have a new dynasty. You won 13 games, and a lot of those games have been against bad teams, which like is showing how the NFL balanced schedule works, and it's great and it's awesome. But also chill. Let's at least win a playoff game. Let's at least beat a couple of good teams before we crown Drake May as the next Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And the rest of the teams there, I mean, Broncos, Seahawks, Packers, they've all been really good. So not much to say there.
Yeah. Great job. I think that for me was, let me stop sharing. I think that narrative in the AFC that you talked about is going to be the most interesting thing for me because I'll be fascinated to see, and we'll get right to this on who you're gonna, what games you're watching to this Sunday and Monday. But I'm going to be fascinated to see the Broncos did make the playoffs last year, so they have a little bit of experience. This iteration of the Patriots don't have any experience playoff wise, but they've got a future Hall of Fame head coach with them. Can Buffalo get by those teams as well as the Texans, who have some playoff moxie and experience? Um, so that's going to be the most fascinating to me. I think the NFC is also kind of wide open, and especially with the Eagles backsliding the way they are, it's just you look at the Rams, I think, as or the Seahawks, their window's got to be wide open here. All right, 1 o'clock on Sunday. What are you watching? We've got Chargers at the Chiefs, um, Buffalo at New England. Two huge 1 o'clock games. What are you watching?
I'm more looking at that Buffalo New England game.
Yeah,
I think that's a more interesting game there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
is the Colts are later on, right?
yeah. So 425. I mean, three big 425 games. I have no idea what's going to be on TV here in New York, but you've got Packers at Green Bay at Denver. Wow, what a matchup, right? Late season matchup. And then you mentioned this one, Detroit at the Rams, and then you've got Indy at Seattle. All three are at 425.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with Indy Seattle. Because they didn't. I'd said this to you. They didn't get Philip Rivers off the couch. They got him off the Tempur-Pedic. Um, so they got Gramps, not Unk, going there. So we'll see what
He has a
happens.
grandfather too. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I think the biggest one, especially when you're looking at like the overall um, scope of like playoff races and all, the Rams and Lions is big. Um, because not as much for the Rams, but much more for the Lions.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. That's a great matchup, and I like the interconference Packers at Broncos that this late in the season as well. Although for playoff implications, I think both of them will be okay if they lost. They're not going to be okay that they lost, but standings wise, they'll be okay. And then we touched on the Monday night game, the Dolphins in Pittsburgh take on the Steelers. I'm sure it's going to be cold and raucous crowd there. You think Miami got a shot to ruin the Steelers December here?
They have a shot. My only worry is that JJ Watt's gonna knock out Tua, and
Oh,
not in like a he's too aggressive way, but like dude is just a beast.
he
So
is.
good luck.
He is. He's amazing. Him and Miles Garrett, I think we're seeing historically good, defensive linemen here, right? With both those guys. All right, fantastic. I will post the NFL chart rankings there. As always, you did a fantastic job with them. Um, hey, so a little NBA real quick. So what are you thinking about Knicks here? 17-7, and I'm trying to follow this NBA Cup thing. They're right in there. They play Orlando. Not till Saturday, I think, right? Saturday or Sunday. I think it's Saturday. They play Orlando, which they seem like I think this is the fourth time they played Orlando this year already, which is really, really odd. And they were a weird matchup for the Knicks, but the Knicks took care of business last time they played last week in the Garden. What are your thoughts here on what you're seeing from the 17-7 Knicks?
I think this is the best Knicks team that we've seen. No, I could argue in my lifetime. I don't remember if I've seen a Knicks team start out 17-7. The NBA Cup will be interesting. You had said yesterday you think that they actually want to win it, which I think is
I
is
think they
good.
do. Yeah, yeah,
Um, and I do wonder how, like for me, the biggest thing is just health. They got to stay healthy.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody's starting to fit into their roles. You sent me last night. I think it was on Prime, OKC and Phoenix. And Phoenix has really started off very, very well. We talked about that. But OKC blew them out by how much? 49, something like that. That was crazy.
50.
They won by 50 points. So OKC is 24-1. Are they going to challenge the Warriors here, man?
This is the best start in NBA history, tied for the best with
Yeah,
the aforementioned Warriors.
yeah,
I think they've got a shot.
yeah, yeah,
And I just keep looking and I'm like, okay, so they have each of their biggest players like Chet, J Dub, and also Shea for years. And then they also could have two lottery picks depending on how the lottery falls out.
yeah.
And it's a very deep draft class. So yeah,
Yeah,
OKC is here to stay. And I think what's so surprising is how dominant they've been. Because
yeah.
like I thought they'd be good. I didn't think they'd be 24-1 good.
Yeah, this is incredible, and that's going to be fun to watch. Um, Spurs knocked off the Lakers last night. Lakers still, I think, are 17-6, but they're out of the NBA Cup now. Should we be really honing in on this Spurs team now?
I would say so.
Yeah,
Um, Especially if Wemby can stay healthy.
yeah,
He looks like he's taking the next step,
yeah,
which for him is a big step.
yeah,
Um, and I think that that could be very huge for them because if he emerges as a top 10, top five player, even if he doesn't win MVP, if he's like most improved player in the league,
yeah,
that's a dangerous team,
yeah.
especially with all the other pieces they have around.
Oh, totally agree. I only jotted this down. You don't have to comment if you don't want, but the Pelicans are 3-22, and the Wizards are 3-19.
Yeah, people always talk about how baseball, the salary cap would make the bad teams better. You see in the NBA, a lot of the bad teams are always the bad team. When was the last time the Wizards were good, let alone, or I guess decent, let alone good? Same with
Long,
the Pelicans. Like
a while. Yeah.
Zion, I mean, Zion's got to be the bigger bust that we've seen in a minute. So
Yeah. Yeah, and who knows when he's playing again, I guess the last thing NBA wise, and we're gonna get more into this as the weeks unfold here, and maybe something will happen quick. But the whole Giannis thing has really picked up. I know he's hurt right now, but I don't think that's gonna scare people away because he's not a guy that misses a lot of games. Um, and I think what's gonna get more interesting, Ken, is Giannis to the Knicks. Do the Knicks do it in the middle of the season? You and I talked about that at the beginning of the year. What are you thinking with Gian? The thing is, Giannis, man, if let's say not the Knicks, if he goes, let's say to Miami or somebody else in the East, there was some talk on Atlanta. I mean, then the Knicks might have to step in and pony up Karl Anthony Towns, and I don't know. What are your thoughts?
If they can keep Karl Anthony Towns and one of Bridges and OG, which I don't think they can, unless
Yeah,
they're involving like two other teams,
yeah,
I think it's possible.
yeah.
I think it would work, but otherwise, go out west. Honestly, a team that has a lot of assets that could probably get him is OKC. Um,
Yeah. They're
but
not.
also they're not going to do it. But um, a team like San Antonio, him and
Yeah.
Wemby would be very fun to watch.
Um,
Um, I don't think Houston probably doesn't have the assets, but that would make them a much better
uh,
team.
uh,
And people love to look at Golden State. I don't know if they have the capital that they would want, but
they'd
that would
have
be
to.
also interesting.
They'd have to trade half their team. The Warriors, I think. I was reading that. But the Warriors are interested, which is also very interesting. This is going to get fascinating. And he's a generational player, so it's hard to say Knicks take a pass because you might win it this year. But boy, oh boy, I'm picturing Miami's playing so well already, but Miami would break that team up to get Giannis. I mean, they've always gotten stars, there. So, um, I don't know, man. This is gonna get really, really interesting. All right, ready for some very quick inspiration?
Yes, I am.
All right. For me, Broncos linebacker Alex Singleton. He returned for a few weeks ago. This is a few weeks old now. For when they played the Commanders, the Broncos played the Commanders. That was only 3 weeks after he underwent emergency surgery for his sudden testicular cancer diagnosis. Only 3 weeks, and he was back on the field. And after the surgery, he posted a photo that said "See you Sunday night," making sure that he would be there. So he didn't have really any symptoms or anything, Ken. This is one of those God things, right? That is not random. It is definitely on purpose because God had a purpose for his life. His cancer was caught on a random drug test. And it showed up on this random drug test that he had elevated levels of human chorionic, I'm going to mispronounce it, so HCG hormones were detected, which caused an alarm because that wasn't from anything external that he had taken. And so it turns out that he had, testicular cancer that was advancing pretty rapidly. And so it got caught. He's back on the field playing great. Alex Singleton's a very good linebacker for the Broncos, and but he came back in just 3 weeks. But I think the main thing is how God, through this what we may think is random drug test, caught a guy that had really no symptoms, no uncomfortableness, playing at a high level in the NFL, catches cancer. So Alex Singleton catching it and then coming back the way he is, being open about it. That's the inspiration for today for me.
Yeah, that's a great story. I loved kind of hearing that and like also surprised. Like I can't imagine within 3 weeks going from fighting cancer to back on the field. Like that's incredible.
Amazing. Yeah.
Um, Actually, mine is kind of cancer related as well, and it has to do with Shohei Ohtani. I don't know if you heard of this story.
No.
Um, Told by Dave Roberts here. But one of Shohei Ohtani's former teammates, Gus Varlin, had his mother was battling cancer a few years ago,
Mhm.
and Shohei made a what Dave Roberts said a significant contribution to her cancer fight. I don't know if it's medical bills, whatever. Um, so Gus Varlin's brother, Louis Varlin, plays for the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
And Dave Roberts was able to talk with him at the World Series and also talk to his mom.
Oh, wow.
And his mom had said, yeah, cancer is completely gone. They're very grateful for Shohei.
Wow.
And Dave Roberts really kind of told this story as a way to say, we are like, he does a lot of things, but he's very quiet and very behind the scenes about it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Bible verse, not letting your right hand know what your left hand is doing.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's a lot of people, like, when they make a significant donation, they want their name on it, they want to be known. But I think there is something to be said about doing stuff in secret like that. So, shout out to Shohei. Guy makes a lot of money, and I'm sure that he is not selfish with it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And Varlin is with the Blue Jays, he pitched in just about every game, right? He's got that rubber arm. Very good pitcher.
Yeah.
Um, that is an amazing story. And yeah, I love when it's quiet behind the scenes because biblically that's how it should be, right? It's and so I love that. That is awesome. All right, man. Lots to talk about. We didn't even mention the Yankees much except for like their ex-players. So we got to get into what the Yankees are doing in this offseason, which is a mystery to me as well, and I'm sure it is to you. Maybe Stearns and Cashman will get together and figure some things out, together. But and this whole Sharon Moore story, I'm sure we'll have more info by the time we get together next week. So lots to cover. We'll get into some more college football as well next week as some of these games. And Notre Dame definitely got the shaft here. They're in love with Alabama, which is I get it. I totally get it. But Notre Dame, people are going to watch Notre Dame too. They're a very popular program. How do you go from championship game? You only got 2 losses anyway. All right, we'll get back on all this next week. Kenny, take us home.
All right. This is Kenny Squared End
Kenny.
with Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next week.